What's good, guys? This video is going to be a guide on awakening movement, different ways to move and how to do it, so let's get started. This movement set I'm about to teach you is used for all purposes, and mainly for in combat PvP especially, and it just so happens this combo was already taught to Sorcs years ago by the name of Phantarum, a movement rotation that was made 3 years ago and is still relevant to this day in PvP. So if you want to see the original video, you can, link is in the description. So to start this off, you'll press S and C for the awakening block. Then immediately after, you can Shadow Leap with W and F, then Midnight Stinger with Shift and L and B, into Dark Flame S, L and B, R and B, into Mouse Button I frame, then Rushing Crow W and R and B, then Mouse Button once again for Awakening I frame, into Midnight Stinger Shift and L and B, into Dark Flame S, L and B, R and B, then Mouse Button again for the I frame. Then this is where we loop back to the S and C for the Awakening block, and thus the infinite movement loop. So this movement is going to be your main way to move around in PvP. You can essentially do this infinitely without running out of stamina, and of course you'll need mana pots regardless. And to make sure you are aware of what's safe and unsafe in this combo, here's a chart. This will tell you what each ability is, and one thing to remember is Dark Flame is only a frontal every 6 seconds off cooldown. So basically the second Dark Flame you do in the rotation will be unsafe. Now the movement itself may seem like it can go forward, which to be fair is mostly true, outside of changing your camera direction, which does change the direction overall, but there are 2 parts in the rotation where you can change the directions manually. The I frame after each Dark Flame. Here, instead using the mouse button to go forward, you can just shift A, S, or D to change directions. The same applies to the Awakening I frame after Rushing Crow. So at those 2 parts you can change the direction a bit if needed. Another way of moving with tempo is just standing and block manually with S and C, and you're pretty much just going to do this to gain stamina or to play reactively and safely. The same can be done with walking backwards and awakening. This way you can move a bit with your ability rotation, then suddenly stay in block stance, rather than to always constantly move and putting yourself at risk and potentially getting caught in CC. Keep in mind that the ability Nightmare with F is an option to stay safe in fights as well. Not necessarily movement, but something important for Sorcs to do in certain situations. And the best way to Nightmare is with S and F. You won't be able to gain any stamina while in Nightmare, so keep that in mind. And if you have Flow Requiem, you can cast it again after pressing L and B or R and B to choose which side to attack. Then immediately press F to go back into Nightmare. You can only go back into Nightmare once again, and that's it. Then there's abilities like Engulfing Shadow, Shift and Z, and Sinister Shadow, A or D, R and B, to add in between your awakening movements to feel more flexible and add more options if needed. Storming Crow is a thing as well that works well after an iframe for variety too. And if you want a protected movement rotation that works in tempo by lingering frontals, you can use abilities like Shadow Leap, Flow, Nightcrow, Engulfing Shadow, and Scythe Walk. If you rotate between these abilities to use iframes and linger frontals, this can help you stay protected a lot more. There's no official rotation for this. You can just use each ability depending on what cooldowns are up and what protection you need in certain situations. So the more you see what I'm doing here, the more ideas you can get on how it's done and how you can do it in your own style. The last thing you can do is use S and F and pre-awakening and hold L and B to go faster. A last resort option if needed that doesn't use stamina. In terms of movement in non-combat situations, one popular way is the bunny hop method. In pre-awakening, you can spam W, Shift, and space. You'll run out of stamina eventually, so it's used in a way that isn't always spammed, but sometimes in a burst or every other second to spread it out. Otherwise, you can just use the combat movement or put your weapons away and just straight up run to your destination. And if you ever need the great escape out of a situation without entirely spamming iframe, you can iframe to the left or right and use Sinister Shadow with A or D, R and B. This way it's half an iframe, half an unsafe movement, and most people won't tell the difference. So rather than spamming your iframe, you can last longer doing this since it doesn't use additional stamina. You basically have a 50-50 chance of getting caught. Now I've already put this in my videos multiple times, but in case you found this video but haven't seen my other ones, I'll go ahead and show it again. Here's how you can bind your WW key to your mouse button. Press escape and go into settings, go into interface settings, then into action hotkeys, and you can scroll down and see evasion WW and bind that to your preferred mouse button. Today actually the new patch just came out with core skills available for awakening and your bombs. I'll cover those in the next few videos hopefully soon, and as always, if there's any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.